welcome to Americans Learn. My name is Lauren, and today I am looking at a video that I just discovered by the channel Forrest, Galante. And it's 5 animals that have only been seen once, which I just feel like is kind of crazy. And I'm really fascinated by the idea. I love animal videos. If you've seen any of my other stuff, then you know that I'm a big fan of the animal videos. So I'm very much looking forward to finding out some crazy animals that we've only ever seen one time. And like I said, I've never actually watched this guy before, so I'm curious to find out what's what. I don't want to waste any more time. Let's begin.
Imagine discovering something that the world has never seen.
I used to imagine that all the time.
Disappear forever, never to be seen again. Creatures so rare and so mysterious that we only know they exist because someone, somewhere, caught a single glimpse. From glowing sharks with pockets to red leopard cats, today we're diving into 5 of the rarest, most mysterious animals that were only seen once, starting with American pocket shark. A shark.
A pocket shark.
Pockets. This tiny shark, barely 5.5.
Okay, so I was thinking pocket shark, like, even though he said shark with pockets earlier, I still was thinking, it's a shark that's small enough to fit in your pockets. And apparently it's that too. How does he put stuff in his pockets?
5 inches long, was discovered in the Gulf of Mexico during a 2010 research trip.
Wow.
That was actually focused on researching sperm whales. It wasn't until 3 years later that scientists at NOAA took a closer look and realized that they had found a tiny shark species completely unknown to science. And here's the wildest part. This was only the 2nd pocket shark ever discovered.
Okay.
The first one,
so they've found more than one.
The pocket shark, was caught way back in 1979, thousands of miles off the coast of Chile.
So already this was a clickbaity title. This has been found twice. I'll forgive it.
Decades, scientists thought it was the only one of its kind.
Oh,
then,
how would that work?
Suddenly, the American pocket shark shows up in the Gulf of Mexico.
Oh, look at him. He looks like Monstro, but baby.
This isn't your typical shark. The American pocket shark has a round, bulbous, almost whale-like head, a light gray body, and darker fins. Around its skin are tiny clusters of photophores, basically little light-producing organs, which it probably uses to camouflage itself in the deep sea. But the real mystery, and arguably the coolest thing about this shark, are those 2 strange pockets behind its front fins. They're actually tiny little glands, which scientists think are capable of secreting a glowing fluid that could help attract prey or communicate with other sharks. How insane is that? It's like a little shark spraying its own neon-colored perfume at a rave.
That's pretty cute.
Trying to attract mates.
It would work.
No one knows for sure that that's what this pocket is used for, as we've only ever seen one. And that's the thing, that single specimen, a juvenile immature male weighing just half an ounce, that was caught in a deep sea research net over 980 feet below the surface.
Wow.
And since then,
that's
there's
deep
been
as
no
hell.
record since. It's been over a decade, and despite countless surveys and trolls, no.
Oh my god, I just remembered that he said 2010 and now it's 2020 frickin' 6. That's crazy. The seas are so cool. There's so much in there we don't know about.
No one's ever seen another American pocket shark.
Oh, okay. The American pocket shark versus the Chilean pocket shark. Never mind, I spoke too soon about his clickbaity title. I'm sorry, Grant. What is your name? Galante? Forrest? Galante? Editor, erase that.
Probably not extinct, but it does show how insanely little we know about the deep sea and just the ocean in general. These sharks live in the bathypelagic zone in literal pitch black waters thousands of feet down, and humans almost never explore there. They're so small,
it's been hard to. Hopefully we get more in there later.
The deep sea, we never really know it. If we're ever going to find another pocket shark, it'll probably once again be by accident. But until then, the American pocket shark remains one of the most mysterious creatures ever caught.
That's pretty cool.
A shark with a built-in pocket, seen once and never again.
I like
now,
the little
this next animal is actually
bits.
a real mystery, and it just so happens to be one of the rarest cats in the world. This is the Golaris cat, also called by some the Nerino cat or red tigrina. Sadly, like many of the other species, we don't even know for sure if this animal still exists. All we have is one single skin, that was collected way back in 1989 on the Golaris volcano high in the Andes of southern Colombia, over 10,000 feet above sea level.
I wonder if he's going to go into it, because, like, if something like that, if it's just, it feels like maybe it could be a pigmentation thing, because that could just be a mutation of a cat that does exist, you know?
The skin shows a small spotted cat, part of the Leopardus family, but unlike other tigrinas, its fur is a striking reddish-orange with black rosettes that are deeper red on the inside. The cat's total body length is around 1.5 foot long, with an almost 1 foot long tail. What's nuts to think is that all of this detail.
I can't believe the tail is like as long as its body. I guess that makes sense though for cats. I feel like a lot of cats have really long tails.
Now comes from a single skin, a literal clue. Now the skin sat in a Colombian institute for decades.
Okay, so we'll be able to find out if the skin, because it is just the skin and they actually have it, they'll actually be able to do tests and stuff on it to discover if it is a mutation or if it's its own thing. Okay, got it.
Mistaken for an ordinary tigrina until a scientist in 2001 spotted some kind of an anomaly and then spent the next 2 decades studying.
Whoa!
Genetic
crazy.
analysis later showed that its
a lot of
DNA
focus.
doesn't match any other known cat species.
Nice.
And both nuclear and mitochondrial sequences were found to be unique.
Oh, cool.
That? Completely distinct lineage, divergent from other Leopardus species 1.2 to
Wow.
1.9 million years ago, that was quite literally hiding in plain sight all this time.
That's
With that
so
collection,
cool.
no other individuals have been found. Trail cams have been placed all across southern Colombia since 2018 that haven't picked it up, and surveys till now have turned up nothing. Its high altitude
That's
habitat
crazy.
is extremely fragmented and under pressure from human activity. So, if the Golaris cat still exists, it's probably in tiny numbers.
Yeah.
It could already be extinct, or maybe it's just
That's
super
possible.
elusive, seemingly purposefully staying hidden. So, what would it take to see one again? Scientists would need to confirm
Magic.
the living population. In order to do that, they need to locate additional skins or skulls from local hunters, ideally capture some kind of genetic material to understand its relationship to other tigrinas. Until then, Golaris cat remains a species of cat
That's so
that
cool.
we only know from a single pelt that was found all those years ago.
Well, okay, the thing is though, if they found a pelt, and so that means that somebody killed the cat and skinned it and then left the pelt someplace. So it is one of those things that it's possible that this cat, like, it was prevalent hundreds of or thousands of years ago, and like somebody had the pelt and they kept it preserved in some kind of way, and then like it was passed out through families or something. Then it is one of those things that it's possible that the cat species itself died out way longer ago than we're thinking. Or it's just really good at keeping to itself. But like somebody skinned it though. That's the thing. That's what makes this the most interesting, because it definitely had contact with a human. Because someone skinned it. So that's... I wonder, can they tell with their tools when it was skinned? Because if it was skinned in the 80s when it was found or whatever, then that's a totally different story. I need to know more information.
Go. Next up, a bright orange gliding squirrel that's only ever been seen once, the Namdapha flying squirrel. This is one of the rarest mammals on Earth, found deep in the jungles of northern India. This animal is honestly so incredibly beautiful. It's got this crazy reddish grizzled fur and this white belly, and its patagium, the thin membrane that stretches between its limbs and lets it glide through the trees, is orange. And here's one of the craziest things about the squirrel. So from head to tail, this squirrel is 3.5 feet. That is a pretty damn big squirrel.
Oh my God! That's as big as a 5-year-old. That's crazy.
It's insane, but not as insane as the story of its discovery, which was just fascinating.
It's that big, and only one of them's ever been seen? Are we sure it's not just like a random flying squirrel with gigantism or something? Like, that's crazy how huge that is. And it's only been seen one time?
Back in 1981, a zoologist named Shyam Rukh Biwas and his team was surveying wildlife in Namdapha National Park, which is a massive misty rainforest tucked between India and Myanmar, a place I'd really love to visit one day. And that's when they stumbled across a single specimen of a flying squirrel unlike anything they'd ever seen. Lo and
Jesus
behold,
Christ.
it turned out to be an entirely new species. And since that one sighting, which is now almost 44 years ago, not a single confirmed sighting has ever been made again. Can you believe that? One of the largest flying squirrels in the world, something you'd think would easily be seen if it was up in the treetops, seen once and seemingly never again.
But they're 100% certain that it's not just a weird mutation of like one that exists. Like I know that they can look at, because they have a picture, it looks like, so I know that they can look at like the shape of the head and the ears and the snout and all of that and kind of put things together. But sometimes, you know, those skull shapes can be very different depending on certain mutations that a person or an animal can have. Do we have DNA evidence that it's not the same?
Something really cool is that a few possible relatives have popped up over the years. 2013, researchers found a similar species in Laos, the Laotian giant flying squirrel.
Okay.
And in 2018, another was described in China called the Mount Galagong flying squirrel. All three of these have been tested and found to be in the same ultra-rare genus as our Namdapha flying squirrel, making them some of the most mysterious rodents in the entire world.
I do need
As
to...
for why we haven't seen the Namdapha flying squirrel again, well, that's the saddest part. The national park that it belongs to is remote, yes, but it's not exactly untouched. There's hunting, there's poaching for bushmeat.
Yeah, but like, surely a poacher, if it kills something like that, even a poacher might... If they're being killed off in that kind of quantity, I think surely we would have had skulls or something, you know? There would have been some more evidence to their existence and like what they are and the fact that they're different. I don't know. Unless they're getting shot and then like not recovered.
Habitat loss from logging, there's habitat encroachment. The forest where that first squirrel was found could easily have been changed since then, but some scientists think that the species might survive in small numbers hidden away in the park's steep valleys and high ironwood forests. But without proof or any DNA evidence, it's been listed as critically endangered by the IUCN and possibly extinct.
Yeah,
However,
fair,
get
but
this, 2022, there was a glimmer of hope, a possible sighting in the exact same region. Researchers even collected potential fecal samples that they think belong to said squirrel to test for DNA. And if the poo sample turns out to be real and gives us a positive ID for the squirrel, then it could be one of the biggest rediscoveries of our time. But until then, the Namdapha flying squirrel...
They found that in, what, he said 2018, and it's still, they don't know? I don't know. This one I'm a little bit like more on the fence about. Like the other two, it's like we actually have, like we had a physical creature or we had a DNA sample of a creature. This one we have potentially one photo and no physical evidence at all. That's
remains a literal ghost of the treetops. Next up, a bird that feels like it literally slipped straight into legend. Meet the Siau Scops owl. This species is a tiny elusive owl known only from a single specimen collected back in 1866.
Whoa!
That's over a century and a half ago. And since then, there's been literally nothing. Not even any photos, sightings, no calls that could be verified. The only semi-conclusive thing that there's been is stories by locals from one small volcanic island in Indonesia.
And again, and that's important. That's what I was saying about the other one. Like, there's no hint, no stories, no nothing. Because, like, I feel like a squirrel that big would be, like, prime cryptid fodder. And so here we're already saying, like, oh, yeah, well, there's potentially stories. See, that already is better evidence.
Old preserved bird sitting in a museum drawer. The initial story behind this owl discovery starts on Siau Island, which is north of Sulawesi, a remote discovery. Preserved bird sitting in a small volcanic island in Indonesia, and one old preserved bird sitting in a museum drawer.
Sorry, I needed to go back and like double check on what he actually said because I was chatting over him. The stories from the natives are one thing, and then also the bird that they have a physical evidence.
The initial story behind this owl discovery starts on Siau Island, which is north of Sulawesi, a remote place that was covered in forest back in the day. Sadly, today, most of it is gone, which doesn't look too promising for our little owl. The Siau Scops owl was first described from that one holotype that was collected during the 19th century, and nobody's ever managed to find another. It's believed to have lived in the island's lowland rainforest, flying between branches in the dense, humid canopy. Given its relatives like the Sulawesi and the Shanghai Scops owl, it was probably a nocturnal forest hunter that fed on insects and small invertebrates and blending perfectly into the bark of trees.
It does.
However, here's where
look
things
like
get
bark.
interesting. Some scientists aren't even totally sure what our owl is to begin with. The taxonomy of this owl has been debated for years. Some researchers think it's its own distinct species, while others believe it could just be a subspecies of another Indonesian Scops owl. But the problem when you're debating something like that, there's literally only one of that species to go off of. You can't exactly run genetic tests.
I think I would do a great job being one of these like actors portraying scientists and the thing, just very seriously, yes. Very seriously, studiously looking into a microscope. I can turn this button. I can turn it. I'll dress the set too. And also in the sets, okay, I have not spent a ton of time in science labs. Are they all this white? Like, I feel like that feels like such a cartoon thing. Like, and again, I have not spent time in an actual laboratory outside of high school. But I don't know. If you're a scientist, tell me. I'm gonna have to text my friend. Be like, Laura, you do gene sequencing and shit. What does your lab look like?
Or compare behaviors when the only thing you've got is a 150-year-old bird in a museum.
That probably wasn't
DNA
hella
is
preserved well.
Extremely fragmented and degraded.
Yeah.
And there's not really any help a sample that old can provide. Despite that, there have been rumors. In 2017, a video popped up online of a small owl that was caught inside a building in Siau. Locals swore it matched the description of the Siau Scops owl, and the footage sparked a huge wave of excitement among ornithologists and birders. Could this have been it? The first living evidence of the Siau Scops owl in over a century? Unfortunately, we don't really know. Even after all the analysis, with tons of scientists looking at said video footage, no one could really.
It's hard to tell with a
and
video.
Still remains unverified.
Yeah, no, you
Since
would
then,
need
teams
physical
have gone back
samples.
To Siau, hiking through the last scraps of forest, setting up nocturnal listening stations, recording calls through the night, putting up cameras, but unfortunately, they didn't get anything. The biggest reason that we haven't seen it again is that the forests of Siau are almost gone. Back in the late 1990s, researchers estimated that only about 50 hectares of forest remained on the island, most of it clinging to the steep slopes of Mount Tamata,
and that wasn't
which also happens to be an active volcano.
Right, that wasn't their
rest of the
whole
island
vibe,
has been cleared for farming, logging, and plantations. For a species that probably depends on dense forest cover, that's quite literally a death sentence.
Yeah.
Still, conservationists aren't giving up. Various organizations have been funding surveys on Siau and nearby islands, hoping to find just one to prove it's still out there. Because if it is, the population would almost certainly be tiny, maybe as few as a dozen birds at most. But even that would be enough to give the ghost species a second chance. Until that day, though,
I mean,
the
they'd be
Siau
inbred
Scops
as
owl
hell.
is one of the great mysteries of
They
the
give the
bird
Habsburgs a run for their
tiny
money.
forest owl that vanished, seen once in 1866 and never again. Now, this next species is the OG ghost lizard, and there are a few ghost lizards out there. Lizards
Cool.
that have been
Never heard
seen
of a ghost
once
lizard.
and then never again, or not seen for many years. But the species I'm talking about is the Namdapha curly-tailed lizard. This species was discovered back in 1868, and like the other four animals we previously talked about, we only know it existed because of one single specimen, and that's it. The whole description of this species is based on that single preserved female that someone collected on Namdapha Island, a tiny uninhabited dot in the Caribbean. It had this dark gray body with faint bands running across its back and a tail that faded from pale at the base to deep gray near the end. That seems pretty unassuming and quite ordinary for a lizard.
Lizardy.
But what made it special was the same thing that gives the whole group its name, that little cute curly tail. You might have seen them in Florida, but curly-tailed lizards have a weird behavior where they perform this curled tail lift. And they do this regardless of whether or not a predator's around, almost like they're showing off. Here's the crazy thing though, that one specimen was all scientists had for over 50 years until another one supposedly turned up in 1917, collected by a guy named Rollo Beck. However, decades later, when another herpetologist took a closer look, he went, yeah, that's not it.
Not the
Turns
same.
out that the lizard Rollo collected only just turned out to be a completely different species
Oh,
altogether.
great.
So in the end,
Smart.
we're
Good
back
job,
to
Rollo.
square one, that single lizard collected 157 years ago. Guys, this is just a small handful of examples of unbelievable creatures that may still be out there that are known from a single specimen ever. There are many more out there, and I'd love to do more breakdowns. So if you like these kind of lists, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll do some more. See you on the next one.
Bye. See, did I just completely misunderstand what he was saying about that squirrel thing then? Because like everybody else, they seem like they have a it seems like they had a sample of it, but it's like I thought that he said that the squirrel was just a sighting. So did I just completely misunderstand that? Did I like skip? I just wasn't listening. I don't know. Either way, I did find that interesting. I've never heard of like any of those before, which is cool because sometimes there's crossover between the animal videos that I look at. So, you know, like I'll be like, oh, wait, no, Lindsay Nicole talked about this one, or no, Casual Geographic talked about this one, you know, things like that. So this was cool. I found never heard of any of them before. So that was fun. Let me know if I just like misunderstood that thing with the squirrel. I thought that he said that that one was a sighting. Everybody else had a sample. That one it sounded like was just a sighting, which gave me a lot of pause about what it is. But anyway, tell me. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well. That helps the channel out immensely. Even just commenting, giving a little like, make sure that you're still subscribed and that the bell notification's still on so you know when we post. All of that helps out a lot. So thanks again. I'll see you in the next one.